Welcome to Now for Someone Completely Interesting, brought to you by Vengeance Energy Services, small trailer repair and small equipment rental with mobile mechanical capability. Call Mike at 780-614-7687 or find them on Facebook, Vengeance Energy Services. I'm your host, Ben Poulin. Joining me is a gentleman that I got to know thanks to his volunteer work along with his wife Gladys with the Iron Horse Ultra 100. And through various social gatherings, we learned that Duane here is quite a storyteller, especially when it's stories about his life experiences. So whether it's through his career as a fish and wildlife officer, his involvement with search and rescue, or just growing up in Banff, Alberta, I already feel that we may have more than one episode on our hands here. So I'm pleased to welcome someone completely interesting, Duane Fleming. So let's start with growing up in Banff. You know, I've always envisioned Banff as this big tourist attraction destination, and it's more of maybe a bit of a transient atmosphere because of that. I've never actually met someone who was raised in such a global destination. So if we can maybe just start there with you growing up in Banff. Tell me a little bit about how that experience was.
Okay, people have to realize there I am, a little bit older here. So my youth was growing up in the 60s and the 70s in Banff. And Banff back in those days was really busy, a touristy town for July and August only. The rest of the months there, we had businesses shut down over the wintertime, including the Banff Springs Hotel. It was a small town anywhere in Alberta throughout those other 10 months of the year. So, yes, we had the tourists for a very short period of time there, it says, but it was like any other small town. In Alberta, we kind of made our own entertainment. Relied a lot on the service clubs and that to help us, subsidize us for playing hockey and for skiing and stuff like that. It was, it's totally different now, of course.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole 60s, it was that way. In fact, it was one kind of funny thing there was we have a bunch of Greek families that are living in Banff. They own a number of restaurants. Every winter they would shut down, and in the spring they would open up again with different owners. These guys rumored to like to play cards a lot, and these restaurants changed hands continually, for many years. Between the families, nobody seemed to get lose out bad. He says, if they lost one year, they won the next year.
What kind of changed? Where did that tourist, as we know Banff today, did that change while you were growing up, or is that something that happened after?
No, it phased in, and I can even give you the date, 1968. Okay. It was Nancy Green. She won the gold for the giant slalom for the Olympics in France, and then we had skiers before, but all of a sudden that was the in thing to be a skier. Okay. And we had a noticeable influx of new skiers, of people trying to get in on this trend. Nancy Green, of course, had Nancy Green ski team that she started up on Sunshine Lake Louise.
Right.
Brought in a lot of people, and all of a sudden now, not only we have the July, August, but now we had the December to March ski group. And that was kind of the start of things there. As skiing grew, as the tourism grew, July and August all of a sudden was June, July, August, September. And skiing was now November, December, January, February, March, and even into April. To the point where right now, I still have friends and family there. There is no off season.
Right.
It's straight through now.
How was that like? I guess growing up and seeing the people spending all this time and money coming to visit your community, did that give an impression that you were kind of in a really lucky place, I guess? Or
it did. One thing that we realized, all of us there, is that Banff relied on tourism, relied on the tourist dollar. And you had to treat these people right. You had to cater to them. If the waiters and waitresses there, they made a huge amount of money on tips because they just bend over backwards for them there. You treated everyone who was coming in, as a guest.
Right.
And you grew up like that because you knew that was your bread and butter. And for a lot of businesses, summertime, let's say for July, August, whatever money they made there, that had to last the year.
Right.
So you had to be good.
Right. your parents raising you, so you weren't in the per se the seasonal business. Your dad was, I believe, a doctor.
He was a physician surgeon.
Okay.
He was grew up in the Edmonton area. My mother was a nurse out of Calgary. It just so happened that when he'd finished his internship, they were looking for a place to settle down, and a practice opened up in Banff, which was wonderful there.
Right.
So they were able to go there. Banff is not a good place that you make a lot of money as a doctor. It's you're a small-time physician there, but he didn't go for the money there. He went for living in Banff. He went for that
Right.
That lifestyle.
Absolutely.
That
Why
was
wouldn't you? But you told us an interesting story about your dad. I think it was just a couple months ago we were visiting, and I believe your niece had called you, and she was writing an essay about her hero.
Yeah, she had an assignment. She had to go and pick a hero, a family hero that she wanted to interview. So she phones me up there, and she says, I need to interview a hero. And of course, I'm getting thinking this is me. And okay, well, thank you very much. I'm very flattered. And she goes, I want to know about Grandpa. And what makes him a hero?
Right.
And so I said, well, of course, he raised five children. We lived in the back of the clinic for many years. He worked. He had office hours 6 days of the week. He was on call at the hospital for 2 or 3 nights of the week. He made numerous house calls. And this is right through his career. And the patients knew his home phone number. They could phone him day or night. And he got a lot of calls at night that he took care of. But the one thing that really stands out to the character that he had was early on when he moved to Banff, he had a patient, and this patient had a daughter, a young child, that was brain damaged.
Right.
He'd gone around to all the experts in Calgary already. He had asked, trying to find somebody that could help, and basically they all said, you're going to have to institutionalize your daughter. She just can't operate on her own. So the new doctor in town, my dad, he came and he asked him the same question. And my dad is a voracious reader. He reads through medical journals, books, anything he can get his hands on. But anyway, he had read an article about kind of a physical therapy that for working with brain injured children to get them to learn how to better control their motor functions on their arms and limbs and movements. And it was based down in Philadelphia. So here's a small town doctor on his own initiative and his own money there, flew down to Philadelphia, 2-week intensive course to get certified in this practice, and came back to Canada there for one patient, to try to work with this one patient. I don't know any doctor that would do that today.
I mean, unless they were planning on specializing specifically for that in the long run, but he was doing it just to take care of one patient.
To take care of one patient there. He says that he realized that this father had no other recourse. He was his last hope. And so Dad said, well, I think I know something, and we'll give it a try.
Did that translate into more people with similar situations coming to him because of that? Or?
Actually, it did. Once it kind of caught on, he formed a group there that's for like-minded, for physiotherapy there, based out of Calgary. It was called the Institute for the Achievement of Human Potential, or something similar to that. Nowadays, a lot of the experts pan that, saying it was so oversimplifying brain injuries and stuff. They're just too complicated, and they can't just solve it like that. But it did help this girl, even if it was just more physical action, more interaction with the child. There, she didn't have to get institutionalized. Her parents were able to take care of her at the home. And so my father started the institute in Calgary there. It went on without him there, of course, because he's in Banff and these guys are in Calgary. But it gave people hope.
Yeah. So one other little tidbit that ties this into this as well. So a couple episodes back here, I had my mother-in-law on with me, and she came over to Canada from India, landed in Calgary, promptly got a job in Banff, and spent a couple of years there. And we find out that after getting to know you a few times and meeting with Monique's parents, that your dad was her doctor as well. So we were connected before we even knew we were connected.
Yes.
So going into fish and wildlife, I've never had someone on my podcast yet with that type of career or anything like that. You're now retired, but you spent quite a few years in that. So how did you get involved or decide to go in that direction for a career?
Well, actually, I flip-flopped back and forth a bit. I was born and raised in a park setting. Mm-hmm. We had the park wardens, the federal park wardens, and that's. But what happened is I thought, well, I think I like law enforcement. So I went on to Mount Royal College. It was a college at that time. Took criminal justice. And then that summer, I landed a job as a seasonal park ranger with the Alberta Provincial Parks. And I loved the experience, a lot of outdoor hiking, patrolling, and that's, and I just kind of felt that I was more of a calling than police work or criminal justice corrections. So, but I didn't want to just drop out of college, so I went back again. I finished my next year. And then I went on to Lethbridge Community College and took environmental science, and that was, you needed that before you could be with the parks or with fish and wildlife there. So still hadn't thought about fish and wildlife yet. But so I was working the summers at the parks, I was working the wintertime, I was going to college. When I graduated from college, and I started getting wintertime jobs with fish and wildlife. And at that point I went, this is really what I want to do. Parks, and no offense to parks there, but I was a seasonal. It was more like a babysitting job. You're there, you've got campers, you got to make sure they don't get into trouble or cause damage. You have hikers, you got to make sure they don't get into trouble, and they don't interact unfairly with the wildlife. But with fish and wildlife, I found myself using my education lots there. It says they're not only dealing with wildlife management, enforcement, problem wildlife, they're dealing with fisheries, they're dealing with importing, exporting, endangered animals, and I was using my brain more so. And so at that point there, I said, this is what I want to do. I want to get into that aspect.
There would be, because you said originally law enforcement, but there would be an element of law enforcement that pertains to fish and wildlife, correct?
It is there. Right now, it is. If you look at an officer today there, he says he's very much law enforcement.
Right.
Back when I was hired there, you were a jack of all trades. There's small offices throughout the province in different communities. And you were the enforcement officer there, yes, but you're also the problem wildlife officer. You're also the biologist. You're also there to answer any questions regarding the flora and fauna. In fact, sometimes you would answer questions about other government agencies because you were the only government representative in those places. So,
where did you work as a fish and wildlife officer?
I worked in Evansburg, which is about an hour west of Edmonton there, down in Rocky Mountain House. Worked out of Cochrane. Worked up at a place called Red Earth Creek, which is 100 miles north of Lesser Slave Lake. Mm-hmm. And then here in St. Paul.
I see. Any particular stories or events that kind of stand out over that time?
Well, I would kind of getting into, of course, my next thing we're going to talk about is a bit of search and rescue there. But I remember a couple of incidents there which kind of led into search and rescue. I've always been an outdoor type of person there. I've always been very good with a map and a compass, orientating myself. But there's been incidents where it was a good learning experience for myself. I'll just go back to when I was working with parks. I was asked by this one lady there. She was one of the finalists with the Miss Calgary pageant.
Okay.
And she wanted to go out, and her theme was photography.
Right. So
she wanted to go out and take wildlife photography. And I said, well, I know there's some really active beavers in this beaver house down in a low swamp area. Mm-hmm. There's a slight trail system going through there. So I said, well, come on, I'll take you out. We'll go down just before dark, and that's when they're most active. And not thinking anything of it there, says, we'll be back before nightfall. So I let her off the path and let her down to where there's some beaver dams and stuff. Well, it got darker quicker than I thought. And I didn't have a compass or anything else there. We're off the trail.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, you're lost. Now, normally this would be kind of, hey, I'm with this Miss Calgary finalist area, but that's the furthest thing from my mind.
no.
Was I just wanted to get back home, back safe, and not look like an idiot.
Yeah.
And this lady trusted me to take her out, and I was letting her down. And so we're walking through some really wet, areas there, so over beaver dams and everything else. And one of the things with search and rescue, you realize there that when you're with more than one person there, you actually make better choices. When you're by yourself, you have nobody to bounce ideas off of or anything like that, and you can do some crazy stuff there. But this lady that I had out there, she just went, when I was going off in one direction, says, that's not the direction. I think it's the other direction. And I kind of stopped and thought, well, he said, you know what? Well, my direction is not really getting us anywhere. And we have to figure this out. We have to figure out there must be a better way to work out how to get out of this area. And off in the distance, you could hear the highway.
Right.
And I went, okay, good. I got a bearing now. I know where the highway is. Based on the highway noise there, we worked our way over there and came out about a half mile away from where we went in. But it was a good learning experience there. He said, I knew I was going to go off trail. I knew I was going to get dust there. He says, carry a compass, carry a flashlight. So
it never happened again.
Never happened like that. Every time gets a little bit more there.
There you go.
When I was up at Red Earth, we had another incident there where we're jet boating down the Wabasca River.
Oh, okay.
And we're going down toward the Muskwa River. And what happens is we had a bunch of walleye that were in the river and in the lake area there. Well, we know that in the summertime they're pretty protected and nobody can get in there. It's just all muskeg. Mm-hmm. But there is a river system there, and we always wondered, I wonder if you can get in from the river in the summertime. Because if there is people going in, then we have to keep an eye on that.
Right.
So we go down with a jet boat with an outboard leg, and we're already a couple hours down the river, and all of a sudden we hear a bang, and all of a sudden we lost all power. So we pulled into a little eddy, pulled up the leg because there's an outboard jet.
Yeah.
And our lower leg was missing. And of course, those are the days, cell phone. We had no cell phone coverage. We didn't have a satellite phone. Two of us again, so we're starting to think there.
Right.
And we then, okay, we got a 4-day float down to the Trout River Bridge to get out, or we have about a 2.5-day walk through Muskeg to get to Wabasca. So what do? He says, well, the first thing we do is let's go and take an inventory and see what we have in the boat.
Right.
And so we pop all the hatches, and we'd borrowed the boat from Fisheries. It wasn't our boat. So we popped all the hatches to see what was there, and lo and behold, what do they have? A lower leg. They had a spare lower leg. And we're going, who keeps a lower leg?
Was somebody who's been down that river?
Somebody who's been down that river before. And so, of course, one of the things is we always go prepared. Like, what happened? We didn't tell anybody how long we were going to go down the river because we thought we might overnight it.
Right.
We didn't know if we were going to go all the way to Trout Lake or Trout River. The Trout River Bridge. Trout Mountain Bridge, or go back to Wabasca there. So nobody knew what our plan was, and we went, there's nobody going to come looking for us. Not until the government decides they want their trucks back.
That's right. Or the fisheries wants its boat back.
Yeah. So another lesson was, always have a plan B.
Yeah.
And we did not have a plan B that time. And I said, we're two very grown, very experienced guys. I don't think either one of us would have had trouble, hiking it out or floating it down. But just a matter of we were not prepared for that inevitable thing.
No kidding. So based on those experiences, is that what led you into being more interested with getting into search and rescue?
Always had search and rescue, like even with parks or anything like that. We've always been involved with searching and rescuing there. Taking very specialized courses there. We took some courses with the dog handlers on how to work with dogs for a search. How to do proper grid searches and stuff like that, but never an overall course, just always snippets, man tracking and that. So I had the skills. Like I have a lot of the skills from my work. I had a lot of skills from these different courses and that I was utilizing each day. And so when I came up to St. Paul, they offered a search and rescue course.
Okay.
And it pulled all those elements together. And, and I thought, well, I'm a perfect fit. I know all this stuff there. I just haven't been formally trained. Mm-hmm. So I took that course. Got into basic searcher there, and of course you're not on the command post there. You're out on the ground. You're doing stuff, but you're learning and you're figuring out what everybody's job is and what's happening. Mm-hmm. And of course, search and rescue is they have lots of courses, and so over time you get more and more courses. I worked my way up to team leader, then over to search manager, and that's what my present title is today. There, so it's. All my life experiences up to that point had, just fit in there, and it was something I wanted to do. Like here I am retired now, and what am I doing? I'm doing what I want to do, and I'm helping out with search and rescue there. I'm also with the Legion there, and
that's right.
Working with those guys, great bunch of guys there, helping our community, really involved the community in that, and I'm proud to be a part of that organization too.
Yeah, and we're definitely both organizations very lucky to have you, as we are with the, like I mentioned earlier, with the Iron Horse Ultra 100, because that experience alone, I mean, we're dealing with a huge amount of area that we have as a race course. Now, I know you volunteer specifically with just an aid station, and you're kind of just in the one spot, but just having that kind of knowledge around is pretty lucky for us to have. I know for past experience there that it's helped out quite a bit with our runs. So
I got one more story.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. I was going to say with search and rescue, tell us.
Okay. Well, actually, this is back with Fish and Wildlife.
Oh,
again.
okay. Sorry.
Another one of these. Be prepared.
Right.
Not being prepared. I was up in Red Earth Creek, which is really small. There are only 300 people there. So when I need to get my vehicle serviced, we had to drive to Slave Lake to drop our vehicle off. So, and usually when you're pounding on those roads there, they need that vehicle for a full day. They're doing lots of work on it.
Right.
So anyway, I dropped my vehicle off and I went to the Fish and Wildlife office in Slave Lake and talking to the guys to see what they're up to. And Donnie Honor Frychuk, he was the district officer out of there. He said, "Well, do you feel like going for a drive?" He says they had 3 bear cubs way up a tree.
Right. And
don't know what happened to the mother, but the oil field workers had called it in. But every time that he had gone to the site there, these bear cubs are too far up a tree. You can't dart them because even if you could hit them with a dart, they'd probably be killed coming down.
Right.
So you have to catch them when they're lower down on the ground. They knew that they're coming down on the ground because the oil field workers are leaving some food at the bottom of the tree. And every morning the food is eaten, but the bear cubs are still up the tree.
Right.
So anyway, I said, well, let's just, hop in your vehicle, go for a drive. Not thinking that we'd actually even come across them.
Right.
So drive down the road going towards where these bears are last seen, and we're probably half a mile, quarter mile away from that spot. And all of a sudden we spot 3 bear cubs in the ditch. And Donnie, he's been wanting these bears for the last week, and he just hadn't get it. He said, "Let's get them." We race out of the vehicle. Now, we have to get between them and the trees, otherwise they're going straight up a tree again.
Right.
So we actually had to go run past the bears, get into between them and the trees, and then they're dodging us, and they're trying to get up the tree, and we're trying to keep them away from the tree. Donnie grabbed 2 of the bear cubs by the scruff of the neck. I managed to get the third one by the scruff of the neck. We're about 50 yards away from our vehicle. He looks me in the eye and said, "Sure hope these are the right cubs."
I was actually just thinking that the whole time. But I mean, what are the chances there's 2 sets of 3 cubs out there? But but it is entirely possible. I guess too, maybe the moral too from your career and experience is be prepared. Otherwise, you're telling entertaining stories to someone.
Yes. Hopefully they're entertaining.
Definitely have had me entertained. Thank you again so much. This is Duane Fleming. Now for someone completely interesting. But one last question here before we wrap up. And I think you kind of knew this was coming because you've listened to a few of these podcasts. But you're someone who I think is completely interesting. So I've invited you on. But if you could pick someone who is completely interesting that you'd like to see on this podcast or hear on this podcast, what's a name that would come to mind for you?
Actually, there's lots of names. I'm really impressed with people who volunteer their time. The volunteer firefighters, the people who are on all the service clubs,
right.
People who help out with the Iron Horse Trail. I could name off lots of different people there, but I would say Floyd Kunis.
Okay.
If you've ever known him, he's a wildlife biologist. He's the firearms tester here in town. He knows, he was with the fish and game there. He was doing the trap shooting there. He volunteers with I don't know how many different groups there. Great guy. Lots of stories with him there. We have, I said, we have the Harold Lefebvre's, the Jim Blairs of the Legion there. Lots of volunteering. Like, anytime you ask them for something there, they're always volunteering their time. And I wish I knew more guys from the fire department there, because these guys are out just risking their lives, but also the commitment. The time and that for our community. Lots of people say, well, if I get older, maybe when I get time. I said, these people are raising families, and they're volunteering right now. And they're not waiting until they have time.
Some of them have very young families too, because I know a few of them as well. So yeah, absolutely. Good point there on that. Thanks once again, Duane Fleming. Now we talked about this earlier, Fleming with an F or a PH?
Yeah. I always mess people up there, because my first spelling is an odd one there, because I'll say Duane Fleming, and they go, okay, D-W-A-Y. No, D-U-A-N-E. So they get all flustered, and they go and they change that. And they say Fleming, F-L-E, and I go, no, P-H-L. And they go, huh?
Yeah, and I had to double check too, because I got to type it out right when we put it in the notes and everything like that. So thank you so much once again. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. Give us a like and subscribe. Give us a share. Tell everybody about us. Now for someone completely interesting, brought to you once again by Vengeance Energy Services, small trailer repair and small equipment rental with mobile mechanical capability. You can give Mike a call at 780-614-7687. You can also find him on Facebook, Vengeance Energy Services. Once again, Duane Fleming, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.